Well, thank you everyone this morning. I know this is a difficult time for us, so as we go through some of this, I wanted to tell a bit of a story. I give keynotes all over the world around AI, and as an AI developer, every single morning at 4:30 in the morning, including this morning, I am on calls working through engineering as we deliver some brilliant solutions into healthcare. And I'm really excited about telling this story because it's interesting in what's happening in our industry. And we don't use AI as a buzzword or blockchain as a buzzword. In fact, it may surprise you that when we deliver AI solutions into healthcare today, we actually don't even use the word AI. If I go into a hospital and I explain I have this wonderful, incredible AI solution, deer in the headlights. Eyes glaze over, no one knows what I'm talking about, and it's very difficult to do that. So instead of telling you about an AI solution, I'm going to tell you a story. And I'm going to take us from today all the way through to 2040, because I have a vision of where this goes. And my particular vision is coming from understanding exactly where we are, where the healthcare system on a global basis is, what some of those problems are that we're trying to solve, and then what we're actually doing to execute the solutions. So we talk about this in terms of forces of change, and we're watching it happen. And what we see today is something different. We see in these forces of change that the consumer is going to eventually become the center of the healthcare conversation. Every conversation. And won't that be interesting and welcoming? Because right now we're not. And what we have seen is that a dramatic amount of impact to us as the consumer is overtaken by a physician pecking away at a keyboard when we see them. FaceTime is lost, personalization is lost, the quality of care is lost, and somewhere that all of us, we've suffered from that. And it's not just in the US, it's not just in the UK, it is all over the world. And I travel the world looking at these things, and we call this the consumerization of healthcare, and no one actually knows when it's going to happen. Everyone says, well, we're 15 years off, we're 20 years off, we're 40 years off. Well, guess what? We might be. But there's evidence today that the consumerization of healthcare is starting. It is starting because we demand something as consumers in this technology age. We've been spoiled. Online banking, the actual ability to purchase anything online and execute that, get customer service on a reliable basis. These are things that we expect from our healthcare system that to date we haven't gotten. Well, now we're demanding more. And we know that by evidence of what we're seeing, just the hints of it, is that we're going to change as consumers the entire healthcare system as we know it on a global basis. That is no longer going to go from responding to illness, where we're more focused on as consumers sustaining our well-being. If we can control it, and technology allows us to do that, the entire thing changes. The interactions change, the quality of care changes, because we become the center of the conversation. And I stand up here and I talk about this, and I've talked about it a lot, because we're bringing technology to the forefront to allow that to happen. That's great. But the ability to understand what this means is only the ability that this technology will actually succeed. And I'll talk about that also, but this is an interesting thing, because guess what's got to happen? A whole lot of things in the healthcare system. A whole lot of things. And not just this. People don't understand that when we talk about these AI solutions, that the reason why we don't say the word AI and people's eyes glaze over is because they don't know what it means. I lead the Forbes Technology Council. I write in Forbes about this every single month, trying to give back and educate to this industry. And based on that, we want to execute this, and it means that businesses, the businesses of hospitals, of providers, dentists, dermatologists, primary care, everybody has to change their business. The business of concentrating and focusing on type 2 diabetes and illnesses such as that that are starting to fade needs to change. And that the consumers, in becoming part of that conversation, need to allow it to change. But the problem is this: the businesses of healthcare in their current form can't accommodate us. They can't accommodate this discussion. You know why? Because the people like us that have the ability to bring technology forward and to implement it, we lack something major, don't we? We don't have a healthcare customer base at all. We don't have a distribution channel at all. We don't have the ability to get one at all. You know what it takes to build brand today? $250 million. And you know what? Venture firms don't want to spend it anymore. So we have to forge partnerships in order to drive this conversation through. We're going to have to forge partnerships, so rather than viewing healthcare providers as customers, we view them as partners. You know why? They need us as much as we need them. And when I go into a provider today and I ask them about critical questions about their quality of care, the ability to understand that is something that they don't actually comprehend our technology as a result. We have to partner. And selling a partnership, by the way, is a whole lot easier than just selling what people deem as you're trying to sell me something new. The other thing that has to happen is that providers need to embrace and appeal to us as the consumers. Today they don't. I gave you an example of the amount of care that one gets when they go into a hospital environment or they go into a primary care physician's environment. If you actually saw the numbers, I can tell you, in 1977, these are global numbers, by the way, when a patient went into a primary care physician, a new patient, that patient got 31 minutes of time with the doctor. Today, 7.2 minutes on average. It is shocking what's happening. They need to pay attention to us, but we need to force them to pay attention because there's no urgency for change. Technology will get there part of the way, but these primary things all need to happen in order for the technology to work. But wait, there's a whole lot more. Hospital providers, all providers today, they don't share any data, do they? They're lucky if they have their own data to share. And that data that they do have, the big hospital systems have been collecting for years and years, it's dirty data. It's unstructured, it's messy, and guess what? In the US, they have the most amount of it. They don't even believe it's an asset. No asset. It's worth nothing to them. But think about this. Maybe, just maybe, if I partner with them, if you partner with them, they might just turn it over to you. Well, guess what? They have, in droves. And that's really important. But moving forward in a timeline, here's what I see. And it's evidenced by what we collaborate with partners on today, is this, that trust will eventually increase. And as a result of that, the willingness to share will increase. If I can show a hospital provider that I can add value to their business, and we're a partner to come to you as the consumer, all of a sudden their trust is established, isn't it? This is already starting. And I can tell you because we're doing it. So what else has to happen? This data that we're talking about has to become interoperable. It must, okay? We have to have actionable data that we can do something with. Having data that we can't do anything with doesn't help anybody. So if the data is dirty, if it needs to be structured, if the data needs to change and the data can't tell me a story even as it is, I've got big problems, don't I? I've got worthless data. Forget about AI, I can't even train you as a new hospital employee. It's a big problem. This needs to change. I also see access changing, and I'm watching it happen today, and I'm going to give you real evidence about it. But these are traditional barriers. I have no access. But as it starts to change, lack of resources will decline, and guess what? Consumers will no longer be passive. We'll be empowered. We'll be empowered to make change. We'll be empowered to talk to a physician about our care. And they'll be empowered and empowering us because they're going to be sitting there actually listening. You know, I say this, and I kind of say it in a very sarcastic way. You can hear it in my voice. But I went through an exercise myself. Outside of just selling into providers on a global basis, I decided it was a good idea to check myself into a hospital. So I did, back in November. And when I did that, I was outright alarmed by what happened. The entire stay. And I stayed 2 nights. Don't worry, no healthcare fraud. I paid for it myself, self-pay along the way. And based on that, I saw that I wasn't empowered at all. I wasn't even empowered to talk to the doctors that came to see me. And I knew a lot about it because I was diagnosed with Crohn's in 2001, and I knew exactly what to say. And I wasn't empowered at all, and it was a problem. But it allowed me to understand that behaviors need to change. That was the real fundamental thing that needed to happen in the healthcare system. So we needed to bring something into the healthcare system that would do this. But guess what? It's already happening because 2/3 of you, as I look around, are all wearing an Apple Watch or a smartwatch. Guess what? You're starting it. It's happening because they can use all the data that's coming from you as much more reliable data, by the way, than anything that they currently have on their servers. Period, end of sentence. That's it. We've seen the data. We know exactly what it looks like. And finally, by 2040, there are going to be real scientific breakthroughs. And the result of that is accessible, affordable, and personalized healthcare. If we can achieve that, because we're the consumer, we're going to change the healthcare system. And 2040 may sound like a long time away. It is. But we're starting. And start is important. So let me give you some little tidbits about what it takes to implement an AI solution into a healthcare system to make change happen. The change that we're talking about here. It's not just the tech at all. We build some unbelievable, awesome stuff. I showed some of it to the Leaders Circle yesterday. I can show it to you today. And what you'd see is that you're seeing technology that solves a particular problem. But if you're going to solve a problem, this is as much about doing that as it is about changing culture. Because you're going to touch absolutely everyone in that provider. If it's a large hospital system, everyone is going to be affected. Now, a lot of people say, I build this tech, and guess what? I just need it to operate in this little space over here. There's no such thing as in a healthcare system. It's the whole thing. And you have to touch everybody. So you've got to have a plan. And that plan means you. You're the tech provider. You have to tell them what the plan is. That's what people are deeming to be the most difficult part about implementing these solutions, because guess what? We're not McKinsey. We don't consult on how to rehumanize time, retrain staff, eliminate staff, add new staff, make changes to management. This is not what we do. We build tech. I'm telling you firsthand, it's what you have to do. You have to know your client so well, you have to know the hospital system so well that you can not only implement your tech, but you can implement the change. And that's critical. So there's got to be a 3 to 5 year plan that executes this. But you have to do better than that. Because guess what? If you're going to be dealing with healthcare data, you've got to have a data governance strategy. Forget about governance for a second. You've got to have a strategy for data. Then you can govern it. And so that's important, right? This is the most delicate and protected data in the world. In the US, guess what? If you violate your business associate agreement that gives you access to this data, you go to jail. That's how protected it is. You better have a strategy for that. We need a strategy for it. But here's the big thing. I told you earlier that hospitals, guess what? They're not data-driven organizations. They don't even think their data is an asset, right? It means that you as the tech provider have to do what? Change them to be a data-driven organization. Because all your tech does is deal with data. Their data that they don't think is an asset. So, sounds good, but that means that if you're going to change everything in a hospital system in order to sell through your technology, that's going to have to come from the top. It's going to have to come from the CEO, the CTO, the CDO, and you're going to have to get their buy-in on this because they have ultimate budget on protocol on all of this stuff. And so it's not as easy as dealing with people that are in the coding, that in revenue cycle management, or any of that. It goes well beyond it. But here's the interesting thing. These steps are no different in healthcare than they are in banking, or just about any other industry that you're going to deal in. It's the same thing. And that's why someone might tell you, well, AI adoption in the past 3 years has not been what we expected. The results really haven't been there. No one can point to results that make sense. And people are saying we're disappointed by that. Well, not so fast. Hang on. The future is a rosy place for this technology, but these steps have to take place in order to create the building blocks for this stuff to happen. You're going to have to nurture an entire organization's culture to get this implemented. Not so easy, right? It takes a team of people, it takes understanding, it takes expertise, and it takes almost flawless execution. And we haven't even gotten to the tech yet. So these steps that need to take place will mean that the entire workforce changes. The workforce strategy changes. When things get, and people get changed, and people get retrained and rehumanize their time and reassociated to new technology and how it works, the first thing that they think is, oh no, my job is eliminated. Not true. In fact, we've proven in the past 2 years as we've implemented technology that not only do jobs not get eliminated, some get struck because that's what happens on budgets, but that humans this term that you may have seen yesterday, humans in the loop, is critical to making this stuff work. So all of those coders that are in the healthcare system that code, they become insight-driven coders instead, because the coding is done for them. But the ability to be a human in the loop to execute with coding means that their job changes, their functions change, their knowledge changes, and their quality of their training changes. But guess what happens when you do all of this stuff? The quality of care changes. All those people that were doing routine tasks previously, now they get retrained and they focus on who? You, the patient, which is, what did we say earlier? What's been forgotten along the way. These are critical components to doing this, but here's what we've proven. We've proven and we've shown that if we do this stuff, and yeah, people say, not scalable. I'm a venture company, don't like it, can't duplicate it. Everything is a bespoke type of application within healthcare and across the board. Guess what? Welcome to AI, because it is. It is all, every single bit of it, a customized solution, depending on the healthcare system that you're going into. But we know that if we implement it properly, the entire spectrum changes. As soon as that AI goes in a healthcare system, people start asking, can it do this? Can it do this? Wait, I love this. Can it do this? And yeah, but that is another bespoke application, isn't it? So we have to understand that, but on top of that, what is it doing? You don't think about healthcare as being a retail giant, but it is. We want customers in healthcare to stick around. If customers in healthcare around the world start bopping around all sorts of different doctors, we lose focus. They lose focus on us. We want customer stickiness. We want them to stick around. And that's compelling. But guess what's also compelling, we found, is that the engagement with employees in the healthcare system skyrockets. Yeah, they're known to stick around a long time, a lot longer than us. But the fact of the matter is, they're unhappy. We've watched them get very happy. They think this stuff is cool. They're allowed to do something else. And guess what? They're getting paid more along the way. So it's not such a far out thing, all right? And we're watching that happen. So as we watch the healthcare change, think about it in this context and in these terms. We, all of us, are going to change it. We have to enforce what is the actual conversation. We are doing that. We are wearing smartwatches. We are using wearables in a way to send data and to send messaging. We are doing the things that we need to do. We're getting there. But us as technology providers and the ones that execute within healthcare, we are just as responsible for bringing in a total solution. And we've learned that if we don't, it doesn't go anywhere. So think about it in that context, because we have to all come together around these solutions in order to drive them home. Because healthcare systems, they need to partner with us. But we need them as much as they need us. So think about that as you go out and you develop some awesome technology, and partner with the right people, because we're watching that happen. Okay? Any questions? I'll talk about the tech if you want. I don't get an opportunity to generally do that, but we develop some unbelievable things. So if you have questions, hit me up on Twitter or connect with me on LinkedIn. I respond as quickly as I possibly can, and I'm happy to share it with you. Okay? Thanks. Have a good one.